All right, this is Cliffy versus Stuff for round two of TW16. The rule set is same plus plus wall, so no combo, very important, and you cannot repeat the same number combo. So very similar hands from both players. We can see the same 7-6-5-4 in both players' hands. We can see very similar 7-6-5-3s. We can see identical 7-6-5-2s. We can see different but also 7-6-4-3s in both hands. And Stuff has gone for a 7-4-6-4, a card I thought might be interesting on this set. And Cliffy has gone for a 6-6-6-3. In general, no combo, first turn has an advantage if they can always capture. If they can always capture and play strategically formationally correctly, first turn wins. So second turn's goal is to play cards that are difficult for first turn to capture. And so one thing that we might do here is we might recognize that 7-3-5-6 has no unique captures in Stuff's hand. There is nothing it can capture that another card in the hand cannot capture. So I might be tempted to use that first as a starter. I'm not sure where, maybe just a weak corner in one. Weak corners are perfectly fine, no combo, because if your first turn you just want to make sure you can capture everything, and having a card you can take easily because it's a weak corner has viability. Stuff was considering, I know, using a rare, and actually rares give you a really easy starter because all your cards can capture it many ways from many sides. So maybe I was wrong when I said I hate that, because maybe it's more viable than I thought. But I think you will feel bummed about it on second turn. It's kind of a card you have to get out of your hand. That said, let's check Cliffy's strength. We're looking from first turn's perspective, so important to check the other person's strength. I notice Cliffy has a weakness up left. He has 4 sevens in his hand, but all of them face in one of two directions, down or to the right. None of them face up or left. So we actually, 4, 6, 7, 5, and 1 is almost safe. But it does suggest if you put something in 1, you might be able to apply quick pressure. So 4, 6, 7, 5, and 1 is worth considering. If they take, you have a recapture. 6, 7, 2, 5, and 1, you have a recapture, worth considering. 7, 4, 6, 4, and 1. Again, all these moves create something the opponent cannot take. I think this is more important in combo than non-combo. I think in combo, it's more important to just make sure you can always take when needed in this kind of rule set than it is to put out stuff that is as challenging. But he goes for 4, 6, 7, 5 in 1. All right, so we switch to Cliffy's perspective. He has a capture in 4, and it's not a bad capture, right? Like, it's pretty easy to imagine Cliffy goes 4, Stuff goes 2, and now Cliffy goes with a 7 to the right and 7. And Stuff actually has no captures. And so that's going to be one of those positions where Cliffy has successfully made it so that Stuff has run out of captures, and that usually means second turn is doing well. However, Stuff could then play 7-4-6-4 in 3, and that would be safe, and now Cliffy has no captures, so suddenly the pressure's back on Cliffy. There's kind of like, the rule is if first turn can take every time they want to, they win. If first turn can take every time but once, it's a tie. If first turn can take every time they want but twice, they lose. And you might think twice is hard. First turn must have a big advantage. But as soon as you go structurally wrong, it can happen. So for instance, if Cliffy played, let's come up with a vaguely plausible move. 6, 7, 2, 5 in 3, right? Something that sets up 2, he has recaptures in 6, and he has an attack in 1. If Stuff plays in 2, even if he captures, that already counts as a structural failed capture because he doesn't lock anything in, and Cliffy will be the first to lock in. So if Stuff went in 2 there, he would have it's essentially a tie, right? So it starts with advantage first turn, but there's many moves. So second turn has many chances to create a challenge. So it's like this fleeting advantage that you very rarely can hold on to. If the game goes 1-3-2, that advantage is already gone. Now its first turn needs every capture left to be able to hold. And so it goes from that advantage to first turn to a situation where second turn is very likely to tie or have winning chances very easily. And that's why in a no combo closed, I always enjoyed playing second turn. I think first turn has an advantage, but I picked up a lot of wins with second turn against players who made structural errors. I really enjoy no combo. It's very theoretical in a way that appeals to me. Right. So I think 6, 7, 2, 5, and 3 would be a good move. And if Stuff wanted to maintain his advantage, he would have to find something in 7, 8, or 9 there. Those are the only moves that do not give Cliffy a lock-in. This is why I think adjacent corners are really strong in no combo specifically. I think they're significantly better in no combo than combo, and they're pretty good in combo. But in no combo, a lot of players have been trained to block the in-between square, and that's not very good. You're usually fighting for a tie on first turn if you do that. And if you go in 7, 8, or 9, the position is quite vague, and usually the second turn player has some way to attack it and create difficulties. And you've kind of had to put a card out there in the open board in a way that I think is potentially vulnerable, and you don't have like combos to defend, right? Often combo is very helpful to second turn, right? Because if first turn can capture at every point they want to and they play structurally correctly, they win unless combo's in effect, in which case combo chains can have second turn tie or win, even if first turn does the traditionally right things. Without combo, that won't happen, but if it's first turn who starts having to make vague moves, often it's them who wishes they had combo to justify. Okay, Cliffy attacks immediately. This seems quite reasonable. I ended up liking 3 more, but you can build a wall out, right? You can play in 4 and then follow up in 7 and grab safety. Now, in combo, you kind of check 3 squares here. If you're Stuff, you check the recapture in 2, you check 7, and you check 8. Here, you don't check 8, right? I mean, maybe you do if you're really out of ideas, but like, you don't check 8. You can't, combo setups don't matter. If you go 8, they get a free square in 7, that sucks. So you're essentially like, at the start of the game, first turn is kind of on a +1 score. Again, if everyone captures, including second turn at every point they want to, first turn wins. So first turn is kind of +1 at the start, but it's a shaky +1. If you go in 8, suddenly it's back to even, and second turn has a lot of freedom of which cards to use there and which cards to hold on to. But there is a problem with Cliffy's move. He really does have a left issue. So normally, you should just go 2 here. In combo, 7 becomes a much better square, but in non-combo, you usually just want to go 2, because non-combo is about locking in cards. But 7 actually locks in 2 cards. So 7's kind of interesting. And one thing I really like about 7 is if Cliffy goes in 2, because if you go 7 yourself, Cliffy's only lock-in is in 2, so he should go 2. And you go 7, 3, 5, 6, and 5, you can take 2, blocking if they set up a threat in 5, and you didn't set them up in 8. And your 7, 4, 6, 4 and your 4, 3, 6, 7 are pretty good cards to have left over in this spot. Those are pretty decent cards for flipping things. So I think there's real potential to 6, 7, 2, 5, and 7. On the other hand, there's also 4, 3, 6, 7, and 2, and there's a clear advantage there as well. Cliffy can play safely in 7, which should give Cliffy an advantage, except that he has no setup in 5. So Stuff can play in 3 safely, and suddenly we're in a situation where no one has any cards that can be attacked, but Cliffy has to put something down on the board next. So I think Stuff has 2 paths to a clear advantage here, 2 and 7. And those are really the only moves you look at. So I kind of liked the idea of capturing because it just gets rid of 2 being a bad square for Cliffy. But the more I look at it, the more I think, like, this might be a tie, but it's a kind of sketchy tie. It's an uncomfortable tie. And I mean, I think it is a tie, but it's the kind of tie you do not really want to have to play because it's hard to calculate out the entire rest of the game. And there are two different lines stuff can play that look truly dangerous. Now, I would like to retract everything because 6, 7, 2, 5, and 7 is not safe. It can be plus walled by 6, 7, 2, 5, and 8. I am an idiot. So I retract all ideas in 7, and I think it's only has one problem, which is 4, 3, 6, 7, and 2. And then you probably have to play 4, 6, 7, 5, and 7 to get safety in 4 and 7. You don't want to let the opponent start attacking things. And you can't play a 7 out because 6, 7, 2, 5 covers that. When I say can't, I don't really mean can't, like it might lead to a tie, but it looks dangerous. So yeah, I think 2 is the only move seriously worth considering then. Sorry I was being so foolish and thinking 7 was safe, because it certainly isn't. I am not doing well on just arithmetic today, which sometimes happens. All right, stuff has picked up 4, 3, 6, 7. It will be going in 2. There is no case for putting it in 5 or anywhere else. So I think this is correct. And now it's an interesting question from Cliffy's position. Stuff has maintained his +1, right? Stuff starts with, I just need to capture everything and eventually I win. And he has maintained it, right? He played a starter and won, and he recaptured it. He's the first to lock in a card. He is +1 in secured cards, fitting kind of first turn's normal lead. But there are a bunch of cards on the board, and Cliffy can now create new challenges. So one idea is 4, 6, 7, 5, and 7, saying this makes 4 and 7 safe. I think that's the most natural idea, but you do need a follow up against 7, 4, 6, 4, and 3. You need to have something there that doesn't get swept, and it's pretty easy to get swept. 6, 7, 2, 5 is going to be really strong on the bottom row. But maybe you can play something in 6 with a 7 down, and maybe there's tools. 7, 3, 5, 6 also might be a pretty decent sweeper, actually. So I don't think 6 works. I think 6 loses to 5. Anyway, not super important, but you really need an idea. Like, you're not figuring out this move, you're figuring out next move, if you go 7. You could also go 3, but 3 has a bunch of drawbacks. First of all, the opponent could take your card in 4, and that's now safe, right? Second of all, your card in 3 is not safe, and third of all, the card in 2 wouldn't be safe. So it's hard to justify going somewhere other than 7 on kind of general principles. So I think 7 is the square to check, and you should be checking 4, 6, 7, 5, and 7. If that happens not to work, then you play somewhere else. But I think you have to spend the majority of your time on 4, 6, 7, 5, and 7. And I think the clear response is 7, 4, 6, 4, and 3. So you need a move there. So you're going to have 3, 7, 6, 4, 5, 3, 7, 6, and 6, 7, 2, 5 remaining. So he does go 7. And I think we're going to see 3. And then we're going to see what Cliffy has prepared here. If you go 3, 7, 6, 4 in 5, that sets up a plus in 6, which means stuff must block 6. It means if you go 6 next turn, you're going to hold the tie. But if stuff plays 7, 3, 5, 6 in 6, his 6, 7, 2, 5 sweeps the remaining. So I think every move in 5 loses to 7, 3, 5, 6, and 6. You'll be down 6, 4, and 6, 7, 2, 5 sweeps you side to side. Yeah. And you never have more than a single capture, and they get a single capture back, and you're down. So I think you cannot go in 5. If you go in 6, I think it is very similar, except if you go in 6 with 5, 3, 7, 6, then 6, 7, then neither card, neither 7, 3, 5, 6, and 5, nor something in 9 ever takes that 7. But I think in that position, stuff could play 6, 7, 2, 5, and 5, flipping 6. You can't recapture 6, and anything you put in 8 is also flipped by 7, 3, 5, 6. So I think 6 loses. What about 8? If you put something in 8, now we're seeing something that has more hope to my eyes. Because 6, 7, 2, 5 only sweeps side to side if it can touch the 2 to the ground floor, essentially. So maybe now 7, 3, 5, 6 is the sweeper. But 7, 3, 5, 6 is not as convincing a sweeper. I'm not sure which card. Maybe it doesn't work, but I think if there's potential to hold, it's in 8 or 9. And I'm just not counting or calculating well enough today. Stuff has picked up 7, 4, 6, 4. The thing is, I think you can make these moves without having calculated, right? Like, it's fairly clear what the best move has to be, or if it's not that, it's something so creative as to be quite difficult. But like 7, 4, 6, 4, and 3 is such an obviously strong move that just the question is, can Cliffy find a resource here? So I thought the best chance was in 8. I think 5 is met by 6. 6 is met by 5, though not always the same card in 5. 9? We haven't considered 9. 8 and 9 are where there seems to be hope. So let's go through card by card, because with 5 and 6 I was able to sort of dismiss without actually looking at a specific card. It didn't really matter, but 8 and 9 are going to require specifics, which is why I've held off calculating them. So let's say 6, 7, 2, 5 in 8. Then I think stuff can play 7, 3, 5, 6 in 9, going up 6, 4. So Cliffy must capture. His only capture is 5, 3, 7, 6, and 5, and 6, 7, 2, 5 still controls the 3. It doesn't control 7s anymore, but it doesn't need to. Okay, 6, 7, 2, 5, and 8 is not it. What about 3, 7, 6, 4, and 8? Well, I think the same thing, right? 7, 3, 5, 6 in 9 takes that, goes up 6, 4. They need to capture something. Their only capture is El Noil 5, and you flip that. So you still win. Okay. What about El Noil 8? El Noil 8, you can play 6, 7, 2, 5, 9. Yes. And their only captures are still in 5, but your 7, 3, 5, 6 controls 7s to the right. Okay, 8 doesn't work. So we're left with 9. I'm probably missing something because I was missing stuff all day. But if 3, 7, 6, 4, and 9, that sets up stuff in 8. So stuff will have a double capture, go up 7, 3. Cliffy needs a double capture and reply, and I don't see it. So that's going to be a win. If 5, 3, 7, 6, and 9, Five, 3, 7, 6, 9. Where's the win? Well, we can just go through all the moves. We don't need to jump right to the win if we don't see it immediately. If 7, 3, 5, 6, and 6, then Cliffy can play in 8, and you don't win, because 6, 7, 2, 5 actually is no captures. If 6, 7, 2, 5, and 6, then Cliffy has a double capture in 5, and you're not winning because you don't have a double capture back. We're looking at El Noil 9 as our critical move. So your win is not in 6. If you go in 5 with 6, 7, 2, 5, they have a double capture in 6. You do have a double capture back in 8, but it needs to be a triple capture. You do not win. If you go 7, 3, 5, 6, and 6, you're not flipping enough. In 5, you're not flipping enough cards. If you go 7, 3, 5, 6, and 8, you do not flip anything. They have no flips, but they don't need it. Or do they? Your 6, 7, 2, 5 still covers 7s. I've been completely missing this. It still covers 7s because of that 6 facing down. Oh, I'm such a moron. So that should win. Yeah, then I think this is a win. If so, I thought Cliffy's move in 4 put him under pressure, but if so, it might have been outright losing, or the save might have been really difficult to find. If there's not a tie here, and maybe there is a tie here and I'm being a buffoon, I'm going to start opening the solver because we've spent a while calculating. But that's actually really rough if this was just losing on the spot. I do think it really hurt Cliffy this game that he had such a big up left weakness. I have noticed a surprising amount exactly on no combo rule sets of people playing hands with really big directional problems that I don't think would normally play such hands. It's been very strange. This has happened since we started kind of recording TT history, essentially. I'm going to feel very sad if I missed a tie here for Cliffy. I didn't quite get to all the moves in 9, so if it's one of the other ones, I won't feel as sad. But I think it's smart Cliffy's taking his time here. This is really dangerous. There's a very good chance there's like exactly one tie. And if there is, you gotta find it. So the position after 2, there were 2 ties. And interestingly, one of them was 6, 7, 2, 5, and 7. 4, 6, 7, 5, and 7 was not one of them. There are no ties in this position. I calculated something correctly eventually. Good for me. But I do think this move in 7 was the natural follow-up. I think that means this was a really hard situation after 2, which it looked. But it turned out you needed to play one of your 7s to the right. You needed to hold on to 4, 6, 7, 5. And so it turned out getting captured now was less important than having a 6 that was difficult for stuff to deal with later. Because 6, 7, 2, 5 sweeps way too many variations. And you don't see that theme that often in no combo. The kind of had to hold on to a card to avoid getting swept. Because usually in those spots, when you've made something safe that they can't take, then it's okay if they sweep you at the end because all you need to do is flip like one extra thing and you hold. But here, because stuff had safety in 3 and reply, because we had this left weakness and this up weakness, it was too much. He does go 5. I should start putting this in the database too. This is Triad Wars 16, round 2 is level 5 SPPW, all unique number combos. I think that's the stiff. Oh, no 7/7s or 7/6/6s. Yeah. And we have stuff versus Cliffy, 4, 6, 7, 5, 1, 6, 6, 6, 3, 4. Already just very dangerous. That is a question. Would it have been better? Would my move in 3 have been in as much danger? Because capturing like this is something I used to hate doing because I came over from no combo. And in no combo, you very rarely want to capture immediately. And I loved adjacent corners because in no combo, adjacent corners are great. Yeah, Quick Scan seems to think the move in 3 was pretty good. So stuff just went 7, 3, 5, 6, 6. Cliffy went 6, 7, 2, 5, 8. Stuff will go 6, 7, 2, 5, 9 with El Noil remaining. So the order was 1, 4, 4, 3, 6, 7, 2, 4, 6, 7, 5, 7, which I think was a good move, even if it was technically losing. 7, 4, 6, 4, 3, 3, 7, 6, 4, 5. And Stuff takes his second win of his return to TTA. Congratulations to Stuff. I think really Cliffy can only regret the move in 4, which is just like kind of a hard move to have that many regrets about. But I think capturing starters is better in combo than no combo. Because one of the huge benefits of capturing starters is it gets rid of a whole bunch of squares that your opponent, after their starter, presumably has better play in. and also that you often have nice play against their recaptures. Without combo, that's a lot harder. And it also makes it kind of clear what your opponent should do. They almost always should just lock in the card. And you don't want to make it easy for your opponent to make the right move. With combo on, it's not as always the right move. So I think the regrets should be about the move in 4, even if the move in 7 is the technically losing move. And also the hand. The hand having directional weaknesses was an issue. From Stuff's side, I think he played correctly and really well and should feel happy with this one. Um, yeah. Also, for my way of counting, we sort of went first turn starts +1, second turn took it, first turn locked it in, first turn's first to lock in a card. They now lead 1-0 and secured cards. Second turn then made 2 cards safe on their next turn, but the problem was first card made 2 cards safe on their next turn as well. So with cards in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7, first turn was up 3-2 on safe cards, but even worse, second turn has to put a card on the board. When second turn does, first turn takes it. Now they're not securing it, but they are taking a lead, and second turn only has single captures in reply. So they need their single captures to be safe for the score to get to 5-5, and that just wasn't here. 6-7-2-5 swept the endgame too well. Nice game for Stuff. And I don't know how many of these non-combo sets we're going to grab, but glad to have caught at least one of them. And I like non-combo. I'll probably go off talking kind of theoretically instead of about the actual position. But I think there's kind of a way that the moves make sense that combo obviously complicates in a neat way. But I like the it becomes a real game of locking things in. But unlike no rules, it's not as power dependent. It's about the decisions you make that allow you to lock or not lock in different things, right? Where in no rules, like if they have a 7-6 that you can't take at the start, you can never take it. Here, Stuff played a starter that Cliffy could take one way. Now, Cliffy could take it that one way, but he also had ways to set up against the other way, right? We still have the ability to react to things the more rules are in play, but it also really comes down to fundamentals in a way that I quite enjoy. So I might try to catch a bunch this round. I might not. We'll see.